Yes, please.
I won't say it because we're live now, but what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Practically Tactical. This is our live show streaming to you on YouTube. You can catch all of our shows on iTunes in a podcast format. So for everybody out there, we're continuing our April EDC episodes, and I'll tell you what, we have a stacked panel on tonight. We have a lot of concealed carriers here that have been minimum at least a year, if not more, so it's going to be a fantastic show. We got Brannon from NOLATAC on here to really put these guys through the ringer. So it's going to be a great episode. So for everybody out there watching on YouTube, we're going to go person by person here down the list, talk about EDC and stuff. So if you guys have any questions or comments or something you should suggest, put them in the chat. I'll be sure to put them in. And then another thing I want to mention too, if you haven't already, please check out the episode that dropped on podcast and is on YouTube with Protecting Liberty by Billy Johnson from Amidst the Noise with his Kickstarter project. It was a fantastic show. Talked about a lot of stuff on that show, but please go check them out. Information is linked below for the Kickstarter he's doing, so please check that out. So again, put your questions in the chat, click that like and share button. We'd really appreciate it. But let's go ahead and start this awesome show. Also, I need to shout out to all the Moms Demand Attention and the Coalition to Stop something, I don't know what their name is. Had great 8-hour debate with them on Twitter today. So for any of them that showed up, hey, appreciate you tuning in and get some knowledge. So, and I dragged Brannon into the conversation.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, and shout out to Ike at Big Tex Outstores for starting all this. It's his fault. But let's go ahead and start the show here. Welcome to Practically Tactical, episode 71, brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. The Practically Tactical show is a slightly more practical approach to the firearms lifestyle. The show features a roundtable discussion about guns, gear, shooting, and EDC, with some of the best firearms instructors, shooters, figures, and daily carriers in the firearms industry. For more information on the show, links to our guest guns and gear we discuss, please visit practacpodcast.com/071. So on this episode, I have a stacked episode for you guys. This is our third show in our April EDC series. We have on Rob, Stefan, Jonathan, Tyson, and Jeremy, and they'll be discussing their EDCs with firearms instructor, former guest on the show. We have Brannon LeBouef from NOLATAC. So I'm going to go down the list here since we have a stacked panel. So Brannon, you're the first on my list here. Thanks for coming on, dude, and I really appreciate you coming on and really talking some EDC stuff. I know that's kind of a passion of yours.
No problem, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So I'll move down to the list here how I see it on my screen here. So we have next up we have Stefan. We have the dude from Tejas that surfs in Texas. I don't know what it is, but I know I've seen him around here on YouTube. So, hey, dude, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I'm pumped to be here so Brandon can tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah. Next up on the list, we actually have somebody that should sound familiar, should look familiar to everybody out there. We have Jeremy, our buddy from DoctorKote LLC, who was on a Practically Tactical On Target not too long ago. But he's coming on the show to get grilled. So, hey, dude, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It's good to be on here.
No problem. So next up, we have like the Matt Damon of the show, the guy that we've always tried to get on, but haven't been able to. We have Jonathan from Guns 111th Media. Thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. It's glad to be here.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll find time to get you on the show tonight. So it might be iffy, but we'll do our best. So next up, we have an awesome dude named Rob, who is living on a lonely island, to quote that term from earlier. But we got the dude out in Massachusetts, dude. Thanks for coming on, man.
No problem. Thanks.
Hey, no problem. And then we also have Tyson, who just dropped out right now. I don't know if he's scared. What? He dropped out. I'm sure he's going to come back. But basically, we got through the quick intros here. So what I want to do is we're going to go through each person here and talk about some EDC, where they go, maybe some strengths and weaknesses of their setup. And then if they have any questions for Brannon, we'll get in those two, and then we'll get Brannon's feedback and just kind of move along the line. And then after each person, what I'd like to do is open it up to the panel there and see if they have any questions or suggestions or whatever. And then we'll also hit on the live audience for everybody out there that's watching right now as well. So I'm sure Tyson will be back here shortly. I think he's from Utah. So we'll do a quick little intro when he comes back. But let's go ahead and jump right into this here. So let's randomly select... let's go with Rob. I think maybe Rob has an interesting story and a little bit unique. So, Rob, what do you carry?
All right. first gun I bought was actually a Glock 27. I'd seen somebody did like a 10,000 round torture test, and this is like, about 18 years ago, whenever they first came out. But I bought that, and ironically, first gun I ever bought, I just got rid of, and I traded it for a 26. But my recent purchase and hopeful general regular everyday carry is a Glock 17, got a Enforce APL on it, pretty stock at the moment. I'm waiting to put some sights on it. I did have to, because I'm in Mass, I had to pay about $150 for two 15-round magazines. Yeah, the gun was $750, and I haven't done much to it. That's my home defense gun. That's my preferred, when clothing can handle it, carry gun. It's getting warmer, so I have to potentially downsize, and that is why I have the Glock 26 I just purchased. I am following a lot of the videos from Practically Tactical and some of the guests that have been on with modifying their guns, of starting on this guy. I have done a nice little undercut on the trigger and done a ledge here, and I'm working on hopefully getting a nice thumb ledge going on. But this is actually a Gen 3, and I modified it to on the back to do the Gen 4 back straps. Because I know a lot of guys use the, I forget who makes them, those back straps that guys really like to put on there, and I really want to stick with stock Glock stuff. For both guns, I carry a 17-round Glock magazine, generally in the Glock factory-made mag carrier. And early on, when I was a young lad, I was actually using a very poor nylon DeSantis inside the waistband holster. Doesn't get used anymore. And
break my heart, Rob.
Here we go. Okay, the first sort of decent holster I purchased was Alien Gear. Okay, now, despite Nick totally ragging on it, it's actually really comfortable, and that's important to me. For anybody, I mean, I got pointy little hips, it's awful, and it actually works pretty well. Honestly, I don't think it's any different except for the logo than a lot of what's out there. I would prefer to carry on the hip all the time, but I eventually want to move to appendix. And I'm just working my way there. But the regular holsters are Raven concealment for both guns, preferable. Other than that, I got to admit, I bought a knife today for this show, for you, because I knew I didn't want to come on without one, and I know this is just a little Gerber flip-assisted, nothing special. This is not what I would consider a fighting knife, but it's a knife, and it's probably going to be used mostly for opening toolboxes. I'm assuming a real fighting knife should be fixed blade and all that stuff, but that's the rundown at the moment.
Okay, so generally, where do you carry? Where do you go? What kind of environments do you generally go in?
I'll be honest with you. I do carry in the house pretty much at all times, unless I'm sleeping. Then the gun does go into a gun box.
Nice.
I did get it. I like it. Well, my wife is not pro-gun. She's not anti-gun. Years ago, she used to work in Florida in a homeless shelter, a teen shelter, really, and she used to have to deal with a lot of firearms, and she doesn't like them in general. She's been shooting. She's been to the gun club. In fact, my daughter's a crack shot with a .22 rifle, but she doesn't like them. So the only way I was going to have a gun next to the bed was if it was locked in this thing. So I had to buy it. And it works. I like it. I know it's got its shortcomings like everything does. It's got its strengths and weaknesses. But that works. So I pretty much got something on me 24 hours a day unless I'm literally at work. And the job I work at doesn't permit firearms while carrying. And I know there's that rule, you're not allowed or you can't. And I'm struggling with that right now. But generally, if I'm out in public and I'm going anywhere, unless it is strictly legally prohibited, I'm carrying something.
Okay. Before I get to Brandon here, do you think you have any strengths, weaknesses in your setup? Do you think Anything along those lines?
I think my weaknesses really is A, training, B, medical training. I don't know if my next class is going to be medical or moving up the rung on the handgun thing, because, I mean, right now I have no medical experience. I have no medical kit. If somebody were, you know, if I met somebody on the street that had a gaping wound and they were bleeding, the only thing I could do is fill it with lead. That's about it. So I'm struggling with that. But, I mean, mentally, I think I'm fairly equipped for it. But, you know, I just need more actual range time and actual training, and not just you know, time at the range just shooting paper targets.
Okay. So Brandon, I'll turn it over to you, man.
How long have you been carrying?
Well, I'm 43. When I was 21, I got my license to carry, as they call it in Mass, and I immediately got the Glock 27. But I was casually carrying. I mean, I had the whole. In fact, I did bring it. I did get the little plastic Glock holster for it, and I had that little nylon thing. But I carried really infrequently. And literally, in all honesty, my brother-in-law got a membership at a gun club recently. He knew I was into guns. That's about a year and a half ago. And my wife got me a membership at the gun club, so I said, now it's time to get back into them. I mean, I used to have a lot of fun stuff. I used to have a 1911, a couple Glocks, an AR, you know, tactical sniper rifle, basically. But I sold them because I was into guitars more than guns. And
So basically, about 22 years, and you haven't had time to take medical training, is what you're saying.
yeah,
Okay.
you got it.
Well, man, overall, first of all, congratulations on realizing that that nylon holster, which is essentially a gun condom, is probably about the worth $11.
It hasn't been used in years.
Yeah. But like all the attaboys you got for that immediately went away with the Glock magazine holder. Just it kind of evened everything out. No, I mean, first off, good on you for carrying an extra magazine. You know, a lot of people don't do that. Myself included most of the time. The only thing I would say is, you know, a flashlight. I would even say a flashlight before a knife, because the probability if you need a flashlight is significantly higher. You seem to have already identified the need to take medical training. I mean, if you've already taken a CHP class or have any level of handgun training, then the very next step I would say is medical, and then get back on handgun. But if you know, as long as you're confident with your ability to draw that gun and shoot, the next step would be medical. But other than that, man, it's pretty solid.
Okay, cool.
He's being nice. He's being generous right now. So
I expected to be thoroughly smacked around, actually.
Well, I do know for everybody out there that I know the medical stuff hits home with Brandon, which, by the way, you can check out. I believe it was episode 8 or 10 of Practically Tactical on Target. We talked about a bunch of medical stuff on there, along with the M3T, right?
Yeah, the M3T is the pouch, and the ITK is the actual kit.
There we go. We talked about both of those and kind of the training and how he came up about that, which is a really interesting story, by the way. But you guys can be sure to check that out. So good job, Rob. But what I'll do is I'll open it up here to the panel, and then I see Tyson's back. We'll get a little quick intro for Tyson here. So Peyton, I'll go to you first here. You got any questions or input for him or anything?
No, not right now. I'm also one of those people that just started getting into medical training. I took a Army CLS course this year, which was, if anybody was in the military did it, last time I had taken one was 10 years ago. It focuses a lot more on trauma care and how to treat bullet wounds now than how to put an IV in somebody because they're dehydrated. So medical, well, it's true. I mean, it's just the way the Army has evolved. We have to get, our job as a CLS is not to provide extensive medical care. It's to make them live long enough to get that extensive medical care. And in civilian world, that can translate over quite nicely. Our job is not to save their life, it's to save it long enough for the medics to get there. So that's how I go with medical training.
Okay. Jeremy, I'll open up to you. You got any questions or comments?
The alien holster, man. Those get I've never personally had one. I've never touched one. So I don't.
Well, actually, I got a question. Nick, have you ever touched an alien gear holster?
I have, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Then you speak from experience. That's good.
How did you wash that off? No, I'm kidding. I actually like him. Was planning on carrying him in the store, so I'm gonna have to research and find out where the hate and discontent comes from.
It's fairly comfortable. It's just I can't. There's certainly no appendix carry with that. I'm working on that rig.
Okay. Stefan, I'm going to open up to you here. Do you have any feedback or questions for Rob?
How do you like the Imporce light? That's what you had, right?
The
light you had on your
Oh, you know what? Actually, I like it a lot. The controls are really they're obviously ambidextrous. They're pretty intuitive. It seems solid, but I haven't had enough time with the gun where it hasn't really been banged around a lot. I mean, certainly it stays in the holster as far as I've done plenty of drawing and all that stuff, but it hasn't seen as much time as it needs to get banged around or dropped to find out if it's really. It is plastic. It's not metal, but that means it's light, and especially on a full-size 17 with 17 in the mag and 1 in the pipe. That's a little weight savings goes a long way. But
right.
I like it. It's bright, covers a good area. Sometimes I'm out with the dogs in the backyard and checked out the coverage area. It's pretty good. I like it.
Okay. Rob, we did have one question from everybody working out here, from everybody out here. Yeah, working. They're commenting they're working out here in the YouTube world about what belt do you have?
I have it with me. Worst decision I ever made. 511 tactical. It's pretty rubber. It's thicker, but it's thicker than the soft leather Gap belt I was using before. But I'm looking at a DoctorKote Tactical EDC belt. It's got I think they call it the Raptor belt buckle. It's kind of like the Cobra or something like that. Father's Day is coming up. I already emailed my wife the link. I'm not going up to Weaponcraft with a rubber. I'm trying to go up to Weaponcraft with no 511 anything at
That's
all.
probably a good idea. Brandon, showing up to a training class in 511, good idea? Actually, hold on. We'll question it like this. 511 gear, operator as Fooey or get you killed in the streets?
Depending on the streets, it'll get you killed in the streets. I don't get that wrapped around the axle on it as much now. I mean, I view picking apart the way people dress as a sign of immaturity. Like, at some point, like, if you're noticing that much, then the problem's not with what they're wearing. It's where your attention's focused at. That being said, some guys do take it a little bit too extreme. When you go to have a business meeting with a guy at Outback Steakhouse and he shows up in multicam literally from head to toe, that's an indicator. They say you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but you can certainly learn a lot by a book from its cover. And yeah, I don't get about the belt since that came up. In fact, I'm about to do a video. I don't get too wrapped up about the belts because as we've seen this shift from kind of the Raven outside the waistband type holsters to more guys carrying inside the waistband, the stiffness of the belt becomes less of an issue when all it's doing is compressing. If you're hanging something off of it, then yes, you want something that's not going to give under that weight. That being said, I mean, most of the belts I have, quite honestly, just through accumulation of gear and doing what I do, most of my belts are some type of scuba gear belt like that. The Cobra buckles were cool, but to be quite honest, they're a little bit of a pain in the ass to put off and on. There's easier things. What I ended up going with were just the ones with the, I think they're called G-hooks, but the same concept. This one's from Volan Gearworks.
Voland makes great. Voland makes great belts.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a 1.5 and a 1.75, but it sits very flat. And when you appendix carry, I just offset that and set it there. And I like it. I mean, I've still got a metric crap ton of Cobra buckle belts, but I don't even really wear them just because I don't need the weight. And actually, I go in and through the airport constantly with it. I never take this belt off. And this little bit of clip doesn't ever set anything off. So awesome. I don't sweat too much about it if you're wearing inside the waistband, but if you're outside the waistband, then yeah, the stiffness of the belt becomes a little bit more of a priority, not only for security but for comfort. If it's constantly sagging, that holster's digging into you more.
Well, this thing was so bad. Literally, as soon as I bought it, I realized to tighten it, you have to literally push it under itself, and you're basically doing a tourniquet around your waist until you can lock it in. and it's just like my legs go numb regularly. So yeah, it's on its way up. But no, I'll consider that other one because I was looking for something like a traditional belt that you can cinch tight as opposed to having to snap.
Yeah, and this one, there's basically loops. And there's other. I mean, I think SOE and there's several companies that do this. I also had Gene from it's Mean Gene Leatherworks now, formerly of High Speed Gear. It's kind of hard to see, but they've got these loops in it. I had him do that where the belt is leather, but it has this nylon in it, so it's a little bit dressier looking, just a different. It's gonna form to you like a leather belt would a little more easily. But yeah, I tend to stay away just nowadays for comfort and ease of getting it off and on from the bigger buckles like the Raptors and the Cobra buckles.
Cool, noted.
Well, I would say my first belt actually would have been a Volan Gear, except they're so high quality that I couldn't get it in time. But they were definitely on my list. But no, they make good stuff. So I'm going to move us on here. So Tyson, are you back here, buddy?
I am, yeah.
All right. So we didn't get to do an intro. So real quick, Tyson, do a quick little intro.
Okay. Well, I started concealed carrying back early 2013. I got my concealed carry permit shortly after 2012 elections. So that's basically it. Just started carrying. I've got a wife and 3 kids at home, and started carrying to make sure I could adequately protect them. And right after I sought out a trainer in my area and quickly got the training. So.
All right. Well, Tyson, I'm going to come back to you because for those that don't know, a lot of these guys on the panel I actually know and have conversationed with. I think everybody except Rob I've talked to before in some capacity, one or another. So Tyson, if you're gonna be open to, I want to come back to the training thing because do you care if we go into that a little bit?
Yeah, no problem.
So Tyson, I'm going to come back to you here. So let's move on next here to let's get out of the way. Let's get Peyton on here. We were supposed to have him on before, and I messed it up and didn't get him on. Unless you reminded me, I almost forgot to send him show notes again for this show. So
you always have it on like 3 different times.
I know. I always confuse you and Patton. I don't know why, but there's 2 Jonathans on my feed, and I always message the wrong dude. So Peyton,
there's a visual distance between me and John Patton.
just a little. But Peyton, man, walk us through your EDC.
All right, mine is just a bone stock Glock 19. I won't say it's a jack of all. It's a jack of all trades. It's a master of none. It's a 9mm. I'm shooting. I hope these is right, but this is 124 grain spherical dots. Anybody that's ever asked me, I just say stick with the top 10 Hydro Points dots. What's some of the other ones out there?
Critical
really
DVD.
Good. Yeah. Hornady. Those are generally the top ones I tell anybody to do. These are just a matter of convenience, but they work great according to any ballistic test I've ever seen on them. Let's see. The reason I've started carrying about a year and a half ago, not out of any real need, because in the state of South Carolina, you can legally carry with a firearm in your glove box or your center console. That's what I did for years. Let's see. Additional equipment is my Cold Steel AK-47 knife. It is definitely more of a tool than a self-defense, but it's there if I need it. I also carry a little small Streamline, which I don't have available because it's actually in my vehicle. That's where I keep it 90% of the time. What else do you need to know?
What belt you rock?
I don't. I have a standard thick leather belt that I use for my Savoy leather holster. It's inside the waistband, outside the waistband. If anybody watches my videos, you've seen it in almost all of them. This is also my carry. It's thick, works good. The only downside is, and it's nothing against Savoy, is I wish I hadn't ordered this, because if I have to cross draw to get my magazine in a hurry, it's going to take me more time than using my Raven concealment 9mm mag that sits on my left hand hip.
But the holster looks awesome, so.
Yes, it does.
It's one of those things. I have one too, so it's actually in my safe right now. So awesome holsters. For those that haven't checked out Savoy Leather, just insane.
Yeah, amazing quality holster. Like I said, the 45-degree mag holster is something I wish I wouldn't have done. Now that I know I have one, but that's nothing to speak against them their quality. Because cross-drawing for a magazine and a training class is just a pain in the ass. I learned that one real quick. And if you have to do it in real life, it's going to be twice the pain in the ass because now your life depends on it.
Yeah. So, Brandon, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir. You got any questions or comments there?
Overall, pretty solid. The one thing I know about both these guys is on Glocks. When I tell people when you buy a Glock, just automatic. If you're going to really honestly carry it, or carry it, not so much of it's home defense because it's not really getting used, so to speak, that much. But if you're going to be carrying this thing in and out and all this stuff, I really recommend go ahead and chalking up the next $100 for another set of sights. It really even doesn't matter that much what type of sights you get, just as long as they're metal. Particularly if you're a guy that's going to be doing training and things like that, because over time, if you manage to keep the sights on the gun, your front sight's going to start to become very rounded and just nicks. It's just you're not going to be as precise as you would be with that. And that's not even getting into the whole, if you take training classes where you do single-handed manipulations off the slide and all that type of stuff. In all my classes, of course, when I do a lot of CHP classes here locally, and that's the one thing I tell people. I recommend a Glock 19, but go ahead and factor in $100 for another set of sights. If you want to get night sights or whatever, that's all cool, but some type of metal sights. It's a simple economics thing. Sights are one of those things. They're almost like rims on a car. If you're going to change something on a car, it's probably going to be your rims. If you're going to change something on a gun, a pistol, it's probably going to be the sights. So Glock has an option of either providing good sights that most people will change, which will raise the price point because they're, of course, federally required to put sights on the gun. So they either do that and bring the price of their product up for something that people are going to change anyway, or they say, no problem, we'll put the cheapest possible sights we could even remotely call sights on the gun, knowing people are going to change them. That way it brings the price point of our product down. And I'd rather that. I'd rather them do that and me just factor that into it than me pay an extra $50 for the gun, still not like the sights, and have to spend $100 for it. So is it a deal breaker? No. But if you're planning on using a Glock for serious defense, that would be something that I would seriously consider. I've seen them, I've touched them. I haven't had the opportunity to get a Savoy leather holster yet. They're one of the companies I want to carry at the range. To be quite honest, the problem is they got so many awesome designs. I don't think I could sit down and afford to carry it, just enough of them because I just like all the different designs. But man, there's something to be said about a good quality leather holster. It's kind of it's what I call a gentleman's secret, because if it's a concealed carry holster and it looks awesome, no one else will ever know it looks awesome but you, because it's concealed. So it's kind of a pride of ownership thing, and of course leather over time, if you're honestly wearing it every day, will very quickly mold to your body and become a lot more comfortable than most Kydex, full Kydex holsters. Can't really say much on a knife because I'm not a knife guy per se. I'm not very knowledgeable about knives. And the only thing I know, did you have a light as well, or did I miss that?
Yeah, I carry two different stream lights. I carry a big one for when I'm at home, just because the lumens are so much more on it. And then I carry a little small. It's not really a stream light. It's more like one of those fielded stream lights, but they work pretty good just for getting around in dark places at night. I kept it as a struck light. I'm out at night and I'm carrying, and I keep that in my pocket.
Okay, cool.
I did have a question for you real quick, because this thing, I am seriously considering taking this thing to Agency Arms and probably putting an urban kit on it and putting an RMR on it to adjust me. Because I'm not a pistol shooter. I never really have been. I enjoy it, but I've always been more of a shotgunner and a rifle guy. And pistols is actually only something I'm a year or two.
How do you conceal those things?
What's that?
How do you conceal those things?
The agency?
No.
Get a custom software holster.
No, man. On RDRs, I mean that's, and again, I kind of swap stuff up, lots of times as an instructor because I'm trying new equipment or things like that. I'm pretty much always carrying a Glock 19. This particular one, I've got several ZevTech guns. One's a Glock 19. It doesn't have an RMR. I've got two 17s from them that have an RMR. This is the Atom Slide. So far, I'm liking it. There is definitely a learning curve to running a pistol with an RMR. I don't know yet if it's easier to go from RMR to sights or from sights to RMR. It's kind of like, I learned to drive on a standard, so driving an automatic was pretty easy. I would assume it would be more difficult to know how to drive an automatic and go to a standard. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's one of those things that does have an application. It's just is gonna. You have to devote the time to it. Just slapping it on the gun, you're in a worse position than you are if you have any level of training. You know, because you're actually reprogramming, and instead of following through the programming, you essentially threw a bug in your programming. I mean, there's a difference between throwing a bug in it and reprogramming. If you want an RMR or RDS, you have to reprogram. If you don't do the training on the back end, you're doing yourself a disservice.
All right. Nick, I think you're up.
Wow, I was muted there. Sorry, Brannon. Real quick there. How do you like your holster?
I'm digging it, man. I've been wearing it pretty much every day since shot. I like it.
By the way, that's a Raven Eidolon.
Yeah.
When I put it together, I took it apart. I'm gonna put a video on it, but
the worst part about this holster is trying to figure out how to pronounce the name of it.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah. I had a couple of keepers holsters, keepers concealment, that kind of had a foam wedge on it. I like the wedge and the wing. You know, right now, if I was gonna, and I carry appendix. If I was gonna recommend someone an appendix holster, it would definitely be either this or the G-Code Incog. And I'm obviously a little biased toward the Incog. I had a very small amount of input on the design of it, so I like it, but I like this too. I like the dual sweat guards. I like it. I can't really say anything negative about it at all, other than I wish I had the money to put a bunch more in the store.
Yeah. I will say, though, it is a little intimidating when you get it with so many parts, but it tucks my 17 like no other. I'm going to put a video out on install because it is a little intimidating. But let's go ahead and open up to the floor here. So, Stefan, I'm going to open up to you first, sir. Have any questions, comments, feedback for our good man, Peyton?
No, it seems pretty good. Really, the sights on the Glock are really the biggest thing for me. I hate the Glock sights, the factory sights. They're just so cheesy. That's one of those things that it's really strange that, that's perfection. It's weird.
That's funny. But all right, well, I'll move on to Jeremy. You got any feedback and or questions?
No, he's about the same level I'm at as far as equipment goes. I don't have except a knife. I don't have a knife. Soon to get one, but not quite yet. All
right. Well, maybe we'll go to you next here, Jeremy, and then we'll see how mean Brannon will be to you here. But Rob, I'm gonna open up to you. You got any questions or feedback for Peyton?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat with the sights again because, I mean, I didn't want to be embarrassed on the show, so I bought a knife today. I'm not going up to Weapon Craft without better sights on my Glock. And I'm looking at the XS Big Dots, and in my case, I know it's a departure because I've had the previous 27 I had Trigicons 3 dots, so there's a learning curve with any change and something like that. But I guess if I can get back to the Brannon with the RMR, I guess there's a consensus with everybody. Are we going to look at it 5 years from now, and our RMR is going to be far more commonplace on carry guns? I mean, it's the hot item. It's the
I think so. It's
leading edge now, but
I think it will be. It's no different than what we saw. I mean, I came up, for example, I come from a strong marksmanship background. I mean, I was a Marine Corps primary marksmanship instructor trainer, so it's, I mean, fundamentals, like it was everything. The Marine Corps I came up in, there were no optics. The only optics were on M40 sniper rifles. That's it. And if you even brought that up, you were literally laughed at and ostracized. Now, kids are going through boot camp with ACOGs. So, and back then it was a legitimate concern because the technology wasn't at a point where it was truly dependable enough for law enforcement military use. With things like Trigicons and aim points and that, your really only variable is going to be battery. If you get a bad battery or something like that, those things are pretty robust, and we're seeing that same technology transferring down into handguns. You're going to always have those guys that are going to, poo-poo on the idea of, because it's not, man, you need to learn how to shoot iron sights. Well, of course you need to learn how to shoot iron sights. But that doesn't make having a red dot or a laser or a light on your gun or anything like that wrong, But the other thing is that we've got more and more people coming into shooting, and the two ends of that bell curve are your really, really young people who are inexperienced, And by using things like lasers and red dots, you're removing variables that let them focus more so on the fundamentals. And then when they master those fundamentals, you start putting variables back in. And then you start developing them that way. And that's kind of that same logic of, you know, do I take a 15-year-old and throw it behind a standard and try to teach them how to clutch it up a hill, or do I remove that variable, put them in an automatic, and let's worry about them not running into things? So it just depends on your philosophy of training. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum, which are some older shooters, and I don't care who you are, when you start getting older, your eyesight's one of those things that start to suffer. So it truly is a tool that helps for those with some type of eye injury or eye illness that you just sight's not what it used to be.
Yeah, no, hopefully I consider myself as somebody who always understands that anything that I know I can change and retrain. I don't want to be these guys. I don't want to ever say I had training scars, as long as I always consider myself willing to learn something new and to prove whether it will work or not for me.
Absolutely.
By the way, we need to give a shout out. I mean, it wouldn't be, Brandon couldn't be here without our good buddy AA Ron from Solo Defense. So I mean, he can't let Brandon hog all the limelight, right? So
wait, is he here?
Oh yeah, he's out in the chat. Yep.
Oh God, don't put him on. This is my show.
He is. Excuse me. He's actually on next week. So
awesome.
I let you go first because
thank you. Finally.
It's your time. Finally. Yep. I'm going to get down to some other site stuff here when we wrap up here. But Tyson, I'm going to open up to you. You got any questions or feedback here for Peyton?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd say definitely get a decent pair of sights other than stock. Did you say, Peyton, that you don't have a carry knife yet? Did I?
Oh no, I have a carry knife. I bought this
right?
overseas actually when I was a contractor out there. I won't speak to the benefits of cold steel in general, but I love this knife. It's a tool. It's a cutting tool. I keep it with me all the time. If it needs to be an EDC knife, it puts large holes in people.
Right. No, yeah, I mean, I would just kind of pair with the sights thing. That's really it. I think it's pretty squared away other than that.
Okay. Well, let's move it on here to Jeremy, since he kind of said he was in a similar boat here. And we'll stick with similar things here. So we got Jeremy, our good buddy from DoctorKote LLC, making the most ridiculous ballistic gel I've ever seen. It's insane, people. It's insane. But Jeremy, dude, let's talk about what you carry, dude.
Mainly, I carry the Glock 23.
Flat Dark Earth, because that's
Dark
important.
Earth. That is.
If you can't afford it, just stop now.
I already knew that was coming. That's fine. This is the one I've recently actually been carrying. I always put the OEM barrel on just because this kind of gets in the way. I carry on the back. I got lanky arms, so I can reach back there pretty quickly. Then I do the extended mag release. I did have a Zev on there. Nothing against Zev, but they were. I mean, it came out to about right there, and I was getting unwanted mag releases. I got
which is never good.
It's no, especially when you're in Walmart kids section picking your child up a toy. But anyway, I actually soon have. Is it he's gonna hate me for this. Demo knives.
Demo knives, yes, I believe so.
This is the custom knife he's actually worked. Can you see that, or is that coming up?
Yeah, I can kind of see it.
He's got that in the works for me. That I'll be carrying on me. But as in the holster, I couldn't tell you where I got this from because I have no idea. I can't remember. I got it way before I was carrying. I want to say Wilson Concealment, but
First generation alien gear.
Exactly. This is actually it keeps everything pretty snug. Gun doesn't fall out. So sights, I need to work on that. That is one thing I need to work on. But I do have a EMT basic background. I did about 3 months of that, and then firefighting. But other than that, I got that medical. And then I don't know how a lot of people feel about this, but I took the finger grooves off both of these. I personally like it without them. I've gotten some grief from friends from that, but I mean, personally, that's how I like to carry it. That's what feels comfortable to me.
Okay. Any light or knife? Oh, no, sorry, not knife.
No, the knife suit.
Belt, light, ammo.
Savoy belt, leather belt.
Okay.
He did a custom belt for me. Ammo. This is another thing I'm going to get grief for, but I usually just carry Federal. This, I got this about a year ago. They need to get shot off by now, but it was actually at a gun show. This guy was selling these hollow points. He hand loads them. I really don't have a preferred ammo. I'm not picky about it. I know I should be, but right now I focus on my ballistics gel, and that's about it.
Yeah. Well, you should be able to test your ammo, so.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that the dude that makes ballistic gel doesn't know what's the best ammo to have. That's a little shady.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like the rifle shooting, and I also, I carry my SCAR into Chipotle, and that's what I carry into Chipotle.
SCAR 17S heavy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I hate you for that gun. I hate you. So I'm going to turn it over to Brannon and rip him apart just off the fact he has a SCAR 17S heavy.
Jeez.
1%er.
You apparently have the EMT background knowledge, but do you literally carry any medical equipment on your person?
A refractor. I just ordered actually a refractor tactical RATS tourniquet. I haven't got it yet, but plan on carrying that. But as far as that goes, I don't carry anything else on that EMT wise.
Okay. I mean, do you have medical equipment in your vehicle, or?
I have a first aid kit.
But when you say first aid, I mean, is it capable of handling gunshots, or?
No, it's a Walmart first aid kit.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm a little disappointed in you.
I
really am.
It's
I'm not going to be mean, but I just want you to know I'm very disappointed in you. And then, like, I don't get too crazy on ammo. Like, to me, as long as it's a commercially available, bonded, hollow point, generally the heaviest I can carry of that caliber, like a 147. I mean, I carry 9mm. I can shoot 9mm almost exclusively. So generally a 147 9mm. I mean, I own a gun store, so I literally can pick whatever I want and whatever. I try to kind of stay away from some of the stuff that's more on the fringes, the really super lightweight stuff, the Liberty. And now I will say that my first round is a rip round. That way, hopefully, once I shoot them, I don't have to waste my other round. No, I don't get too about that. What I would caution though is I've never heard a good story that started with, well, I got it from this dude at the gun show. Like, I've never heard a good story that way, and he hand loads it. Is that going to be an issue? Well, you've got two elements to that. One, you have performance, and then if it does perform, you have the perceived legal implications of it. It either works or it doesn't. As long as it goes bang, it should do what a hollow point's supposed to do. So, depending on how much you trust that dude that hand loaded it, then there's the perceived legal implications. That's not something that a good, assuming there's nothing spectacular about the round, that there's not an issue with the round itself. The fact that it's hand loaded should not be an issue that a good attorney or an expert witness isn't going to get through. But it's kind of one of those things like the prosecution is going to attempt to paint a picture of you. Don't give them any paint. Make them find their own paint. And by doing that, and look, there's times where you will give them paint, but it's okay because what comes with that paint is worth it. For example, an aftermarket trigger. If I put an aftermarket trigger in the gun and it's not a super lightweight, it's not super heavyweight, but I'm able to feel the reset better and I can articulate all the reasons why I'm able to do that, that's still giving them paint. But it's paint that a good expert witness is going to come back and explain why, and it's going to wipe that off. And that's what it is. Now, if you put, ivory Punisher grips on your 1911, there's no wiping that off. Like, you're giving them paint and they're putting it on. There's nothing you can do about it because you can't articulate a good reason for that. And they're just going to keep speaking about how, they're going to bring up pictures of the movie and all this stuff about, speaking to your mindset. So I would try to make, if you can't buy it at Walmart, you probably shouldn't be carrying it. Otherwise, it's one, it's of dubious quality, and two, just that don't give them that ammunition. I mean, all joking aside, you really should have some type of medical stuff. I mean, I and I know it sounds a little self-promoting, but I mean, I sell medical equipment. I have products in the medical field, so medical is something that's kind of important to me. I have a lot of medical equipment in my vehicle at any given moment, either because I have samples of my products or whatever. I have an actual kit that is designed for my vehicle that stays in it, and then I've got trauma kits on each door. I got tourniquets on each visor, and then I have what's on me because sometimes I get out that vehicle. This is actually a little kind of prototype wallet we came up with, but just a SWAT T tourniquet and some combat gauze. I mean, look at it this way. Unless you're a cop, you probably only have a wallet on one side of your body. This puts something on the other side of your body, which is going to help balance you sitting in the car. And all joking aside, if it does nothing else for you, it will help alleviate back injury over a lifetime for all the things you're going to, from sitting in a vehicle. As a cop, sitting in a vehicle, I mean, that's what hurts guys. Guys don't get shot. Their backs get blown out from riding around a police car for 12 hours. So having something in there, it's, if you're not going to carry it on you, having it in the vehicle, better to have something on you and then a more grandiose bag in the vehicle. But other than that, man, just the ammo. If the holster's working for you, was that one of those kind of hybrid ones that had a Kydex shell and a leather back?
Yeah, it's got the leather back here.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the illegal alien gear.
Illegal alien gear.
Undocumented alien gear.
Yeah.
No, other than that, pretty solid, man.
Did you have a question there, Jeremy?
Yeah, you said you sell those wallets?
Not technically. It's I've been carrying it for about a year now. It's something we'll probably be doing and releasing. I just haven't. It hasn't come up in the queue yet of products, but I'm digging it. And we'll probably have, this one's pretty plain, but we'll have some cool, embroidering on it, and it's more of a fun item to try to let guys like I can't say it now because it's on podcast, but you can imagine if it said bad something. So that would be my make it, the one that says bad,
Question: how many Skull Punisher logos will be on it?
One in
Just
red.
One? In red. With blood dripping off?
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's move it up into the panel here. I'm going to open it up to, we'll do Stefan here first. Got any comments, questions for Jeremy?
Sure, and this is kind of common between everybody so far on the panel, myself included, that I'd like to get Brandon's thoughts on. An inside the waistband holster that has clips as opposed to loops. I've been kind of struggling with that same question with myself for a while. You'll get both sides of that argument, but I was just kind of wondering his thoughts on, if you're in some sort of ground, how important is it to have loops over clips or clips over loops on your holster?
That was for me?
Yeah.
I had a prototype incog from probably about 6 or 8 months before they were ever released, and I had been carrying one up until, so that was probably 2 years, 2.5 years I've been carrying an incog, which of course has clips. Kind of similar to the design of the ones on the Edeon. And then I've been carrying this in shot. I haven't gotten in a fight with it yet. I have taken a class, an ECQC class from Craig Douglas, South-Nart. There's no denying the fact that the snaps, the loops rather, that snap are generally going to be more secure than just the clips. Physics. However, that doesn't necessarily mean the clips aren't good enough. I really haven't put that much thought in, to be quite honest with you. I wear my holsters, literally every single day of my life, from the time I wake up in the morning till the time I get undressed to go to bed. The only time I'll take it off is if I'm doing something like literally climbing in the roof of my building over the suspended ceiling, only because if I fell through, I don't want the gun falling through on top of customers. Other than that, I cut the grass with this thing, I climb under my tractor with this thing. I mean, never once have I had an issue of the clips on either model, anything that I've worn with clips, including like crossbreed holsters that have the metal clips. I think that's much to do about nothing if you're wearing your proper size belt. If you're wearing a belt that's a little too big and the clips aren't fully engaged all the time, well, then it's not compatible. But if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, I personally don't sweat it. I really enjoy, and again, there's nothing against soft loops either. Before that, I wore some Filster holsters, and I wore some Raven holsters that had soft loops on them. Didn't have a problem with it. I really, and maybe one day it'll fall out on me with clips, but until then, no issue.
Okay, I'll just throw this out there. I can't remember. I think I was watching a video, or maybe it was a chat or something, or a podcast. Somebody just thrown out that they preferred clips over loops for the fact of that it's easier to put your gun on than it is the loops, so thus it would be one less mental and or physical barrier to stop you from carrying a gun. I mean, I know most of these guys in here are going to carry a gun no matter if it's loops or clips or whatever. I just want to throw that. I thought that was just a little kind of an interesting
thing. If the loops are too much of a barrier for you to put your gun on, that's a good thing. You're too stupid to carry a gun.
That's good. So I'll move to Peyton here. Peyton, you got any feedback there?
I got nothing on this one, brother.
All right. Keep looking good then. You hold down that department. I'm going to move on to Rob here. Rob, you got any comments, questions, feedback there?
Yeah, quickly, as far as the loops go, the only thing, if you want, everybody can at times get really anal about every little piece of gear. And the only thing I would say about the loops versus clips is a clip won't accidentally come unsnapped. And if a loop did come unsnapped, you got to pull the gun up. It may come out with the whole holster. Other than that, I think it's probably really 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But as far as with Jeremy's EDC, there's only two things that strike me, and the reason I say it is because when I got early on with carrying, I wasn't carrying all the time, but I was reading a lot of Masad Ayub. I got his books. I loved pretty much everything he had to say. He taught me everything I needed to know to walk out in public and not be a moron. And one of those things was the hand-loaded ammo. Just for the sake of a self-defense shooting, I would never. What I use right now is Hornady Critical Defense, actually Critical Duty in the 17, with one full metal jacket on top of the magazine, just to make sure that second round there's no failure to feed. But factory ammo, like Brandon was saying, leave nothing for anybody in court to ever try and crucify you with. And the other thing was the oh, go on.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, it's not like I haven't shot with this hand-loaded ammo before. I've shot many rounds with it before, and it's very accurate. I can see, you never know what can go wrong when it comes to hand-loaded. Through my 7. Actually started to carry that less now that I got the 17, but no, I agree completely. Hand-loaded ammo, if I hadn't shot it before carrying it, I probably would have never put it in the gun.
Yeah, it's that, and the only other thing I had a question about is and the only reason I say it is because I'm moving towards appendix carry. I know Brandon carries that, and it seems like the RMRs. It seems like the I don't like the term tactical community, but the guys who are on the leading edge of training are working their way towards things. We're hearing a lot of RMRs, hearing a lot of appendix carry. If you get thrown on your back with your gun behind you, and trust me, that alien gear was generally at 4 o'clock on my hip because it was the most comfortable there, and I could draw from there pretty well. I mean, almost no quicker than from say a 3 o'clock on a conventional holster. But if you find somebody beating on you on your back, the chances of you getting to that gun are going to be probably 0 unless you have a backup on your ankle or something.
I agree with that. But I mean, I guess my only defense on that would be is it's the same if you got hit from behind and you got hit, pushed against your stomach. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios. That's just where it's more comfortable.
That's more a probability argument. Everything's a possibility, but it's the probability of I've been knocked on my back, and most guys have probably honestly been knocked on their back more times than they fell on their face. And if I fell on my face, it's much easier for me to get back on my back. The other thing for me for appendix carrier, besides all the typical stuff of, it's quicker to draw, for me it's easier to defend. And I live in New Orleans, so if I'm in a very densely populated area where people are literally touching me just as walking by, no one's coming to the front of my, where my gun's at in appendix carry unless I know them or I've paid them to do it. So if someone's coming that way, that's very clearly a threat. Back here is one, as I move more and people bump into me, I have more of a chance of it printing. I have more of a chance of them getting where now I'm trying to fight something behind me. It's not going to work. I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of it's body type too. I mean, I'm a little bit on the outside edge where I've got almost a little bit too much to properly appendix carry. That's kind of what keeps me going to the gym every once in a while. But it's not going to work for everyone in every situation. And look, when it's the 3 days a year that we can wear coats here in South Louisiana, I wear it right on my hip as I did as a cop because I can get away with it then. But I just the climate and the manner of dress where I'm at don't allow for me to do that with a regular size gun.
Come up north, you can wear as much clothes as you want.
Yeah. But Tyson, I'm gonna move to you, sir. You got any questions, comments there for Jeremy?
No, I mean, just about the ammo. I obviously would go factory ammo, just some of a good quality manufacturer. And just to comment on the method of carry, I mean, I carry strong side inside the waistband pretty much every day. And there are techniques, I mean, especially in training, that I've learned and practiced, to retain your gun in the holster. So, I mean, that's if you're going to carry strong side. I do agree that I think appendix carry is, like Brannon said, easier to defend and retain your gun if someone were trying to take it or whatever the case may be. But there's definitely techniques you can learn for strong side to retain it as well, and they're fairly simple, at least in my experience in training.
Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, we got all the panel there. So let's move on to Stefan here. So Stefan, did I see a cert earlier?
There you go.
Oh, geez, we got dudes with certs in here. We got dudes with Scar 17s. What is going on? What is going on? Jeez. Yeah. But Stefan, dude, walk us through your EDC.
Okay. Well, it's interesting you mentioned the cert. This is my first line of defense. I am a humanitarian, so I prefer mental incapacitations for bad guys. So I carry this in a shoulder Serpa holster.
Nice.
As my first line of defense. And if that doesn't work, I tape some a Ziploc bag of Mountain Dew to my inner thigh. And so I pop that, simulating, a mess. If that doesn't work, I have some ho-hos down the backside.
Wait, the Mountain Dew, you try to get them with a number one.
I try to get them with number two. Okay, last resort, I go to the number two. Yes. And in the worst case scenarios, I have a pocket full of 45 ACP RIP ammo that I throw at them.
That's really all you need to do anyway.
I probably only need to throw one at a time, honestly, but that's my last resort. So
that's the best EDC I've ever heard. Maybe other than the tactical butterscotch carry, other than that, that's probably the best thing ever.
Thank you. Yep. I was waiting for applause. I'm glad you guys appreciate it.
That is.
Okay.
That is
from I guess most important and useful, I got my flashlight. I love Costa, so I got my ring on there. Some people poo-poo this, and I spent a lot of time because I had already invested my ego and $19.95 into this. Training with it, so I've gotten pretty good with it. Did one low light class completely with this, and did okay. Next, this is kind of weird and not very much fun, but notepad, pen, it's tactical, awesome, Texas company, check them out. I have had to use this. I was at hanging out by the river one day, drunk guy in a car smashes all these other cars sitting around. No one else is around. Well, actually, there were a bunch of people around. No one else managed to see the license plate. Saw the license plate, whipped my pad out of my back pocket, wrote it down. Cops show up. Here's the license plate. The cop caught the guy. So not very glorious, but notepad. And then this is like a space pen thing. They're like $8 on Amazon. They're metal. I could probably stab somebody in the eye with that. So I got that going for me.
Please do and let me know.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Next is my Pocket Dark. This is Carrie Davis Dark Angel Medical Pocket Dark, and this is it all folded, but it is really, it's pretty small. It looks kind of big holding it close to the camera. But I slide this either in the back pocket or I buy those pants for work that have the little bitty side pocket. It's not a cargo pocket, but they'll have that little slip iPhone pocket, and this thing fits perfectly in there, and it can fold all up. And I've been carrying these things for a long time, a couple years now, and I had to use this guy one time actually, and it worked well. You know, getting shaky, and not for a gunshot wound, but you know, a critical wound. So that was pretty cool. And he sent me, since one thing with these Pocket Darks is if you use them, they'll send you a free one. If you use it and it works, and you know it helped somebody out, Carrie Davis at Dark Angel will send you a free one to replace the one that you used. So that's really cool. Runs about $30. Love this thing. So we've got the stretch wrap and tuck tourniquet inside there. Some tape if you want to make a chest seal out of the wrapping. That's why the wrapping is so oversized. Gloves and some, not Quick Clop, but that other company, Celox. So there's that.
Mom, give me a hot pocket!
Yeah. Super different Glock 19. I don't know what bums made this holster. It's incognito. Extra magazine and a belt. Oh, this is cool. Just got this. Brandon mentioned it earlier. This is mean jean leather with the Aries buckle. Really like this thing. It's super stiff. Phrasing. Boom. And that's it.
Wow, that's pretty solid. But Brannon?
Stefan.
Yo.
You're like the Gucci. Like, you've got pretty much top of the line everything. So that's good. You know, the switchback, I don't have that on my EDC light, just because I kind of shove it in my back pocket. But I have a vest set up, and on my plate carrier, the one I have in there, and a pistol taco has it. It's a good tool, man. You know, Chris, love him or hate him. I mean, that he slapped his name on it. It's a pretty good product, and you got it on a Surefire, so that's pretty good. ITS Tactical, great group over there, man. Brian and Kelly and the whole crew over there, just awesome. I mean, anything you do to support them, even if it's just buying a notebook, is a good thing. I was really, when you started off with that, I thought you were going to say you were sitting by the lake and suddenly a poem popped in your head and you decided to start jotting down some prose. I didn't know where you were going with that. Your space pen, you know, it's kind of funny, but there's a lot of, you know, quote, tactical pens out there. You know, I do a lot of travel on airplanes. You got to get a little bit creative about it. Medical kit and a good pen just kind of shoved in my bag with the rest of my pens. I've never had an issue with that, and I've carried some pretty tactical looking ones, but just a good metal barrel pen, you know, kind of a solid pen. It's really something you can use. Pocket Dark, the pants you were looking for, they're called carpenter pants.
Oh, there we go.
Pocket on the side. But yeah, carry, I mean, Pocket Dark, perfect. Incog, and then Jean. I mean, yeah, dude, you're up there, man. I can't really say anything about that other than what I would recommend though is instead of ho-hos, it possibly Twinkies. It's something to consider.
Oh,
you know, more bright in color, so it'll help you in low light situations. You know.
They penetrate more, don't they?
They do. They're extra filling.
Yeah. I'll open up to the panel here, and so Jeremy, Anything on that one, buddy?
I think the Mountain Dew is a genius idea, because if I was a criminal attacking someone, they started playing with themselves on there, not knowing they were undoing a lid, but I'd be out. That's brilliant.
So, Peyton, follow that up.
I actually had a question about that dark medical. You were using the packaging as a Brannon, what's the name of it? I can't remember what exactly it's called, but it's for a chest wound. Well, we just call it something chest wound.
Well, the item is called an occlusive dressing, and then there's all kind of brands. There's hyphen chest seals, and it's an occlusive dressing. It's a technical name. Most people just call it a chest seal.
Yeah, but what do you use to apply it?
Inside the kit, there's duct tape.
Oh, okay.
And the $10 word for that is tension pneumothorax, I think.
Well, that's the injury.
Pneumothorax is a medical term for being shot in the chest.
Oh. But yeah, duct tape in there.
1,002 uses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was curious about, because I've learned the whole thing where you take we use the MRE bags if you have it, which is very actually similar to the density of that bag right there.
Yep.
You use duct tape, so that was my only question. I was wondering how you'd adhere it to your skin to create the seal, but you answered it. Thank you.
So couldn't you also stuff the Twinkie in there too, in the gunshot wound? I'm just throwing that out there.
I could, 'cause you wouldn't want to eat them.
No, probably not. I don't think they
It'd be good for 100 years though.
Rob, I'll open up to you, buddy.
Actually, I had a question. What is that on the back of the flashlight? That looks sort of like the symbol for the artist formerly known as Prince. What is it, and what do you use it for?
Okay, it's a light that goes around your trigger finger on your offhand. And so it's made to where you can keep your same grip, and then you turn the light on by squeezing your grip.
Huh.
And that's
it. So you can see where your SIRT pistol lands when you throw it at them?
Yes. That way I can find it after they run away.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll also mention for you here, Rob, since before the show we talked about Weaponcraft fanboy status. Episode 18, Sam and Nick both carry those and both talked about this on the show. So.
Oh yeah, you know what? Also, because I'm such a student of the show, I think it was the first, or I think it was the EDC with Jeff Bluevman. I don't, so I'll mea culpa right now. Is anybody here carrying a non-lethal weapon, like I think Jeff had mentioned, a pepper spray or something? I'm looking into it, but I don't yet.
Good question.
My hands are registered as non-lethal weapons.
Anybody?
I really like how I got to thinking about that listening to the show with Trek, where he phrased the less lethal as a distance tool, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
And that made me think of the way he worded it made me think a lot more that is a pretty viable option.
Okay.
But I actually consider a quality flashlight to be a less lethal tool, because if you're carrying anything over probably about 200 lumens, it's gonna, and that's all that the gun all the way down to your hands or your voice is designed to do, is to change people's behavior. And if you shine that light in someone's face, that's gonna change their behavior to some degree. Will it be enough? Maybe not. I can tell you there's plenty of time. And the other thing is, if you shine a light at a person who's not a bad person, it's real easy to say you're sorry. You point a gun at a person that's not a bad person, that's a little harder to apologize for. So, being able to do that one with a good command presence, hey, sir, can I help you? That's something that I can, I'm sorry, man, I thought you were someone else. And no harm, no foul. You accidentally, you pepper spray someone because you think they're a threat, or you tase someone because you think they're a threat, you're going to have some law enforcement involved in that. And again, the worst case scenario, depending on the type of light you're carrying, it's still an impact tool. If you have the training, it's a Kubotan or some type of joint manipulation tool. There's a lot of things that you could do with a quality flashlight. I mean, me personally, I don't carry pepper spray on me, but I have pepper spray right down on my visor, and I have another one in my center console. And if I'm going to a place where I absolutely, positively cannot bring a gun, I will add that to my knives just to have something to give me some standoff distance.
Okay. Cool. Good point there, Rob. Tyson, I'll move on to you. Any comments, questions?
No, not really. I mean, I think that's actually a really squared away EDC with some good quality gear. So
All
looks
right.
good.
Well, good job, Stefan.
Thanks, guys. I guess one critique for myself. We've been talking about knives, and that's another thing I've been struggling with for a while. And Brandon said he doesn't necessarily carry one himself, but I consider a knife to be on the same level as far as force as a gun. The firearm, the tools being on the same level when we're talking about the levels of force. So I've thought about, okay, well, I'll carry a knife as a tool to retain the gun if I'm in a hand-to-hand thing, and one day I will take a ECQC class, as Craig Douglas said. It'd be amazing. So just what's Brandon's thoughts on the necessity of a knife, and that's it.
Well, actually, just to clarify, I carry 2 knives.
Oh, okay.
I'm just not, like, I can't tell you, well, this is a such and such grind and 1975 steel, and I'm not a knife guy. I'm not a knife geek. I own a retail place, so I'm constantly open boxes. I have a Spyderco Delica, I think this is. Yeah, Spyderco Delica 4 on my left side typically, and then I have the Spyderco Carahawk on my right side, both with the Emerson Wave opening. And to me, if I'm pulling this knife out, it's just stuff's really, really bad, because I would, if I'm going to what is going to be considered in most jurisdictions as lethal force, I'm going to want to use the tool I'm most comfortable with and that's going to provide me the most options in most cases, and that's a firearm. So if I'm going to the knife, then that either means someone's coming after my firearm, I don't have a firearm, or I can't get to my firearm. So I've taken some ECQC class. I've taken an ECQC class. I've taken other small little kind of knife clinics. To me, and we keep saying there's lots of guys that offer that type of training, but Craig Douglas's class is kind of the hallmark. To me, that's what I call a maintenance class. That's not a class you take and say, okay, I got that training. That's a class, if you can afford, I recommend people take it every year, or at minimum every other year. It's probably more realistic. That is a maintenance class. That's a class you have to take and maintain those skills. But yeah, another thing is, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I carry a knife and I've got this super cool, karambit, but cutting someone's a pretty personal thing. You could stand back and shoot someone, and it's kind of funny, but our society will accept you literally blowing someone's head off before they'll take you sticking someone with something. Knives give the average person kind of the heebie-jeebies. So if you go to cutting on someone to the point where they die, that's where we get back into that perception of, it's kind of like if you choke someone to death. It could be a completely justified use of force, but just the mere fact that you choke them and the amount of time it takes for it to happen and all that, it's hard for people, the average person, to process. And as users of force, if you've never been in that close combat where you're literally sticking something in someone or had it attempted on you, that's some mental, that's some mental stuff, or some intestinal fortitude that you need to figure out exactly where you stand on that. But no, I do think knives are important. I do think they offer an option. But this is, to me, is a tool of last resort, other than opening boxes.
Cool.
Okay.
It's easier to justify having a knife to a police officer than having a gun and having to show your CCW too.
Yep.
Yeah. No, awesome points there. But let's move it on here to Tyson here, and I'm gonna have. I know Tyson a little bit, so there's some stuff after this. I want to get some feedback on from everybody on the panel, and then Brannon here, but that'll be after. But Tyson, dude, run us through your EDC.
Okay. First of all, I'm really disappointed my camera didn't work because I wanted to show off my EDC gear. But first off, what I carry is a Glock 19 Gen 4. I've made a couple modifications to it. One thing I've done is I dropped in a Gen 3 trigger bar into that to kind of smooth out the trigger pull. And I also put in a Glock OEM minus 4.5 pound connector just to help it smooth it out a little more. And it's not super light. I don't know if anyone else has ever tried that kind of trigger, but it's probably still about 4.5, maybe even 5 pounds. So it's still very suitable for self-defense and all that. I've put a set of speaking of Rob Pincus, his ICE training claw EMS sights on there, and they're great for one-handed manipulations and that kind of thing. So it's got those. It's got a tritium front sight, and actually a photoluminescent front ring around that tritium. So I mean, they're great for low light applications and one-handed manipulations and that kind of thing. So that's the gun. I carry a spare mag. It's a Glock 19 magazine with a +2 extension. I do put the Glock 17 magazine springs in those extensions. I know that was mentioned on the episode with Jeff Louvman. So I've always made sure to do that, to have those extra power springs in there. The holster I'm using right now. Oh, and also on my Glock 19, I do have a Enforce APL attached to that as well, and I carry that with me daily. So the holster I use is a Bravo Concealment BCA, and I've got that set up with inside the waistband clips. I carry a strong side inside the waistband. The magazine carrier I have is also Bravo Concealment. On that, I don't like the injection molded belt clips or the belt loops that they put on those for outside the waistband carry. And I don't typically like to carry my magazine carriers inside the waistband. I can only fit so much inside my waistband. So I carry those outside the waistband, but I actually put Raven Concealment quick mount straps on that. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with those, but they're really awesome. They're the snaps, the directional mil-spec snaps. So they're real secure. I've never had an issue with them. So that's the magazine carrier. The flashlight that I carry is I actually want to get a new flashlight, but this one has always been durable. It's a Streamlight ProTac 1L. So it's a single cell CR123. I think it's 200 lumens or something like that. And it is programmable. I know some people preach against programmable lights, but this one is 10 touch programmable, so it takes 10 presses of the tail button to get it to program. So I've never had a problem with it, going out of the program that I set it. It always does what I need it to do. I also carry since I have 2 light sources, both power supplied by CR123s, I do carry a pocket wallet with spare CR123s. Just in case. I do use my flashlight a lot, my pocket light a lot, and I've had it die on me in the middle of the day using it, so I decided to start carrying spare CR123s, so I carry that in my left pocket. The knife I carry it's just a cheap Kershaw Cryo, but I haven't really had any like hand-to-hand combat training. Most of it's been, or hand-to-hand self-defense training, most of it's been just firearms related. So I don't really consider my knife to be a self-defense tool at this point, just since I haven't been trained in that. So it's mostly just for opening boxes, prying things open, and that kind of thing. And it's a Kershaw Cryo. The belt that everything kind of rests on is a original SOE rigid Cobra Duty belt. And that, I think, is pretty much it.
Did you have a weapon mounter light?
Yeah, it's a Enforce APL.
Okay. All right. I think that about covers it, so I'll throw it back to you here, Brannon.
I would say if you've changed parts with the trigger, I would know what that trigger pull is. Again, we carry these things because we might have to use them, and if we might have to use them, we know we're probably going to have to go to court. So I would want to know all about that gun, especially if I made a decision to change something. If it comes from the factory and I expect it to perform the factory standards, but if I made a change to it, then I need to know what that change is. So you don't want to go and stand and say, oh, it's about 4.5 to 5 pounds. You want to know it's 4.5 pounds. Well, sir, how do you know that? Well, because after I changed the parts, I put a such and such brand trigger scale on it, and after 12 tries, it averaged out to 4.5. So you're able to speak it out with some level of knowledge. A bunch of guys talked about sights. I haven't personally shot them yet, but everybody that I've talked to that has them is just raving about them, and that's Frank Proctor's new sights. I'll plan on getting a couple sets of those and trying them out. If you're in the market for sights, that might be something you want to look into. He's got a video on his channel kind of explaining the logic behind them.
I will throw out there, Brandon. Mine are being sent right now to get installed. So
okay, well, good. You want to? I mean, would you prefer a cookie or a brownie?
Both, actually. Look at me.
Gotta be greedy. FYI,
You know-
photoluminescent is just a fancy way of saying glow in the dark. So
Right.
this is my concern. And again, I haven't tried the sites, but if they're photoluminescent, the photo means they have to be exposed to light in order to deliver light. So if it's in a concealed host or inside the waistband, and you whip it out in a true low light situation, where is it being charged from?
Well, it would have to be charged from a flashlight, but honestly, I don't rely a whole lot on that ring. But it does have a tritium insert in the front where it also glows on its own.
So it has a tritium insert and a photo ring?
Yes, it's got
Okay.
it's got a tritium insert. So the front dot is basically the tritium insert, and then like a normal sight has like a white dot. This lime green ring is around that. So it's actually kind of like an XS big dot. It's that same size.
Okay, I understand.
But it's got a tritium insert in the middle. So I honestly I don't rely on that glow in the dark ring so much. I honestly think it's gimmicky, but it actually works. Like when we've been out at the range, especially for training, a lot of times we've been out for training, transitioning from day to night, and that sight actually stays charged for quite a while. And we've done shoot houses and that kind of thing too. And if you go into a darker or a dimmer lit room from outside, that ring actually does get charged pretty easily from the sun, and so it is convenient in that, but that's kind of a marginal situation.
Yeah, there's only a very small window of opportunity where, quote, night sights are truly beneficial to you, and that's mainly because the logic is, in order to shoot something, you must first be able to see it to identify it to be shot. So if there's enough light for you to say, yes, I need to shoot that, there's probably enough light for you to see your sights. And vice versa. If you can't see your sights, it's probably too dark from a legal standpoint to justify shooting something. Now, that's not an ironclad rule, but that's a general rule of thumb. There are times where I could clearly see, maybe it may just be through muzzle flash, but I could clearly see I need to shoot that, and that those sights will help me line them up. You had mentioned about your light. One thing you may want to consider if you truly do use your light a lot during the day is maybe investing in some of the rechargeable CR123s and keeping that in the vehicle. That way, you instead of carrying them, you can maybe take that weight and that space and put it towards something else. And always keep a couple of lithiums, in a glove box or something. But you always have a set. That's what I did when, in law enforcement work. I always had whatever light I had that was rechargeable. I had two lights, and one was always on charge. And then when this one would go out, I would swap them out. And that's just something to consider. Again, good on the extra mag. I carry two guns, unless for some reason I can't. But if you see me, I generally at least have one gun on me, because kind of my, philosophy is that there aren't too many places in this world where I have to go that I can't bring a gun. If I can't bring a gun, then I probably don't have to go there, and I adjust accordingly. But my gun on my ankle is a Glock 26. I carry a Glock 19 99.9% of the time, and then if I'm really thinking, okay, I need a spare magazine, then first I'm putting a rifle in a truck, but then I'm going to grab a Glock 17 magazine, because that's one thing I like to preach to people who are getting into it is, if you can, if a M&P or a Glock or even an XD, if something with those family of weapons will work for you, you get the benefit of the downward magazine compatibility. And that's a good thing. My wife has a Glock 19 on her side of the bed, so we know if something happened. And being a firearms instructor, I always have God knows how many magazines in my vehicle at any given time. So if something truly does happen, like there's an active shooter at my wife's school or something like that, I know I got plenty of loaded magazines that I can deal with. But so that's why I don't really sweat the whole extra magazine thing too much. But I'm definitely not telling you it's a bad idea.
Okay. Anything else there, Brandon?
And cut.
All right. So I'll open up to the floor here. Stefan, you got anything there?
Oh, there we go. My only thing that I was thinking about was you mentioned putting Glock 17 magazines in your, Glock 17 springs in your 19 magazines. Is that what you said?
Yeah, but it has a +2, one of the Glock factory +2 extensions on the bottom, so it's basically the same length as a Glock 17 magazine. And I have Glock 17 magazines as well. I just found that I do a lot of dry fire practice, and without getting lengthy, I've gotten used to doing mag changes with these +2 extensions because they're a little fatter. The base pad is a little fatter, so it gives me a little bit more meat to grab onto.
Gotcha.
So I just prefer the +2 extensions over the Glock 17 magazines for that reason. It just gives my hand a little bit more to grip onto. Whether that's practical or not, I don't know. I've just found that I'm more comfortable doing mag changes with them that way. But yeah, there's a Glock 17 magazine spring in that magazine with the +2 base plate.
Gotcha. That makes a lot more sense. That's pretty much all. That's all I got.
Okay, Jeremy, I'll open up to you, sir.
The only thing I would have is, and this is more of a personal preference, and it's probably double-sided for anybody, is I guess modifying. I'm kind of feeding off Brandon. Modifying the gun to an extent, not necessarily for court purposes, but for failure to operate purposes. Will it fail? Who knows? Probably not, but you never know. Like I said, I'm saying that out of paranoia. I like to keep all my carry guns, for the most part, stock. Like I said, I have a S3F barrel, but I usually switch that out, and not because of the modification purpose, but just because of comfortability. Other than that, I mean, it sounds like you got a great setup. Like I said, I'm not one personally to modify my carry gun too much.
Okay. Peyton, I'll move it on to you, buddy.
I'm kind of feeling the same way with Jeremy on this one. As Brandon said earlier, you don't want to paint the prosecution a picture of modifying it too much, especially if you don't know exactly what your trigger pull or the exact specifications of your gun are. That's really all I got.
Okay. Rob, I'll throw it to you, buddy.
All right. Actually, I'll give you a little bit of kudos on the what was it? The connector you changed?
Yeah.
The trigger bar.
Well, it was both. The Gen 4s, as far as their trigger housing mechanism goes, it's adjusted to accommodate the slimmer grip of the Gen 4s. So, long story short, it makes the trigger pull in the Gen 4s a little heavier than the Gen 3s. So what I did, and it's actually pretty common for people to do this, all of the parts in my Glock that I've swapped out are actually OEM parts. They're Glock stock parts, but it's a Gen 3 trigger bar that I put into it, and it's also a Glock factory 3.5-pound connector. So it's they call it a 4.5-pound connector nowadays because I guess it's politically correct for Glock to do that. But it's the same connector that they put in like the factory Glock 34s and the factory Glock 35s. It's their quote unquote competition connector.
Yeah. No, and that's the one point of like thumbs up is it's all factory parts and I mean, I'll tell you, I have I think it's a Wolf connector, a 3.5-pound connector, the whole kit with all the springs sitting in a bag, just a few feet from me, and I've never installed it. I got the 17. I started thinking I was going to go a little crazy with some stuff, and the more I learned, the less I wanted to put aftermarket parts in there. But to put Glock factory parts in there, the only time I do it actually would be this. If I can do it, I can prove that it works for me, and I can prove what it's done to the gun, and prove that it was a benefit to the control of the gun, to the safety of the gun, and to the safe handling of the gun. And especially a lot of guys do they do a lighter connector, and they call it the New York spring, and basically it ends up with a heavier trigger pull on the gun. I mean, if you did something like that and you could measure that the trigger pull was like a pound heavier than stock, you'd probably certainly be safe in a court case for that mod. But for that, I'll give you the kudos on the stock factory parts.
Thanks. Yeah, that was definitely done. That was done intentionally to keep it mostly stock.
Yeah. Other than that, there's just a lot of love for Glocks tonight.
Hey, real quick, if I could, I just want to clear something up on the whole change of parts thing. First off, and I'm speaking from a position where I've actually consulted cases. The particular one I'm referring to was an officer-involved case. The prosecution was well, not the prosecution technically. It was the suspect that was shot, ambulance chasing, barely English-speaking, retarded attorney. Attempted to attack all kinds of stuff, everything from the video games that the officer played in his free time to the training he took, which he was more trained than any other 10 officers combined in that agency, literally. But also the trigger. He had an aftermarket trigger that was installed in his gun. It was installed by a Glock certified armor and was approved by the department. Now, granted, this attorney thought that somehow stippling the grip reduced the trigger weight. So that's the mindset we're dealing with here. The point, though, is they attacked it. Doesn't matter what you do or don't do, they will attack it. If you only take your CHP class and never take another training, they're going to say you're not trained. If you've got 2,000 hours of training documented, they're going to say you were training to be a killer. It doesn't matter what you do. So don't make decisions necessarily based off of what you think a court situation is going to do. Just understand how the decisions you make will possibly play out in court. So are you any safer from using Glock OEM parts than using something that's not Glock OEM parts? No, because they're going to it's a wash. Because they're going to look at that and it doesn't matter. It's that you changed it. It came from the factory like this. You changed it. If I get in an accident in my Tahoe and my tires are 22-inch tires instead of the 18s that come with it, it doesn't matter the manufacturer of the tires. If they can show that the tires themselves were a contributing factor to that accident, they are or they aren't. It doesn't matter who made them. Now, what we want to be careful of are doing things that we can't articulate that it provides a positive benefit. I mean, look at something as simple as the color of your gun. All right? If I take a gun and get a Duracoated FDE or something like that, probably not going to be an issue. But if I've got tiger stripes or it's green zombie with blood drops on it, does that change anything in the real world? Absolutely not. Does it change anything in the courtroom? Yes, it will. Because they're going to take that and try, because if they can't attack the facts of the case, they attack the evidence. If they can't attack the evidence, they attack you. And the way they attack you is trying to paint that picture that you're either a liar or you're incompetent. Either one will work for them. So if they could say, or you had ill intent. So if they could take that and say, yeah, this person, well, how many hours do you watch The Walking Dead? Do you DVR? And they're going to go down that road, and you just want to throw up those roadblocks. I have no problem carrying a gun. I mean, this gun I'm carrying has an aftermarket slide with an aftermarket sight on it, with an aftermarket barrel, with an extended, I think it's a stock trigger. I mean, I've got all kind of aftermarket stuff. I have no qualms because I can speak to every single change, every deviation from how this came from the factory. I could speak to on why I did it and how it enhances safety. Safety through my ability to shoot accurately and my ability to control that firearm. As long as I can speak to that, I'm golden. Now, from a functionality standpoint, kind of like ammo, yeah, you're probably going to be okay going with Glock parts. But when you look at it, and I'm going to use Zev as an example, not necessarily them, but a shop like Zev that's doing small batch, high quality work, if you really look at the numbers, you got a much better chance of getting a bunk part from Glock, who's a high capacity, high output mass production. The same thing. The guy that's building, 2,000 rounds a month in his garage is probably not going to have as many bad rounds as Federal. It's statistics. But the guy that's making them in his garage doesn't have the logistics and the background support that Federal's going to have when their round blows up your gun. I've had 2 guns blow up at my range in the last year. Both were 45s. One was a Glock and one was a High Point. Opposite ends of the quality spectrum. Both of them had ammunition that the shooter had hand-loaded himself, and they clearly double-charged it. So it's not about the fact that it's hand-loaded or the fact that it's aftermarket. It's the quality. If I've got someone who I know that hand-loads stuff, would I carry that in my carry gun? No, only because there's so many other options out there commercially. But is it a big deal that it's hand-loaded? No. I mean, does that make any sense, what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, that makes absolute sense. And those are actually some really good points. I will say that the majority of the reason why, the vast majority of the reason why I've chosen to stick with OEM parts is because they're inexpensive. I'm on a, I guess kind of a limited budget when it comes to gun stuff. I mean, I have some pretty high quality gear, But when it comes to stuff like that, I do like having the slightly lighter trigger, and I totally understand what you're saying about the court case and that kind of, or possible litigation and that kind of thing. So OEM parts kind of played a role in what I thought might happen in a courtroom, but more or less it was the reason I kept it OEM was because of the price. I mean, if you go out and buy, like a Zev Fulcrum trigger, it's going to be like $200 or, whatever it is. And honestly, I mean, I personally don't feel like I need that much. I'm the kind of guy where I'd rather work on, go to the range and work on my fundamentals than worry about how light or crisp my trigger is,
Yeah, I'm not saying OEM's a bad decision. I'm just understanding where your decision's coming from is all.
Right. No, and that's, I mean, that's not what I was trying to say, but no, I totally get you, and I think those are some solid points for sure.
This drunken hobo walked up to me one time and said, "The law is written in black and white, but we don't live there. We live in the gray zone between that." So I thought that was pretty wise from a drunken hobo.
Wise, especially a hobo. I mean, I'm just happy it was a hobo and not a bum. I mean, that's two completely different things.
Excuse me. Man, that was a ton of good information there. Something that I alluded to before, but I think now that I'm sitting here with Tyson knows what I'm talking about is what I want to talk about, Tyson. I think we're going to save and we'll do a show completely on that. So I'm going to get you to come back on because there's something I want to talk about specifically. So okay. I want to jump into one thing here because AA Ron had questioned about it, and again I'm going to throw this to Brannon, then I'll open up to anybody on the panel that wants to hop on here. I know. Well. He's gonna
figure out a way to finagle himself in my show, dude.
I know, always.
He's like, I'm like the shark, and he's like that little fish that eats right at the anus of the shark. like that's him.
So this ended up being I'm gonna set it up here with a situation that literally just happened last week. It would have been, I think it was like at 3 in the morning, like my door kind of like creaked open in my room, which is normal when you have kids that try to get in or whatever. And I just said, what? Because I hear it, and nothing ever happened out of that. And then my dog started barking, so I was a little freaked out a little bit. So at that point in time, I actually went and inspected my house. I don't want to say I cleared my house because I don't have the training on that, but I had my firearm. I was aware of the layout and where it should be pointed. Cleared my house. It ended up being absolutely nothing. I'm assuming it was a kid that got up. However, with that, obviously being it's dark in the house, I have my TLR1, which is 300 lumens, and man, the first time that I popped that thing on and thereafter, it is bright. And I wrote this down to ask about and kind of get your input on, and Aaron had to add, literally when I was writing it down, he asked it too, Brannon, about what are your thoughts on lumens, for example, in like an urban environment. For example, like Mike Lamb talks about a video of 150 200 is completely acceptable, especially white walls, urban environment, you can splash it. I necessarily didn't splash my house because well, we all know that if you point a gun up, it kills
angels
kids. Die. Yeah, angels die. But what's kind of your thoughts on lumens, especially for a concealed carrier kind of urban environment, home type of protection? I think now you can get like 1,000 lumens on your gun or some crazy thing like that, but I kind of want to get your thoughts on lights and lumens.
On one hand, lumens are like bullets. I want all the lumens. Okay.
I know who you're quoting there.
The guy with the most lumens wins. That being said, is there such thing as too much light? You ask someone like Pat Rogers, he'll say no. The brighter you can get the light, even in a urban setting or in a structured setting, is going to be good. He has a ton more experience, clearing houses, doing that stuff. I can tell you that what you experienced is what you experienced. There's a difference between running through a shoot house with dark and very absorbent walls and targets and stuff, awake and running it, than being woke up in the middle of the night shaking out the cobwebs. And in your house with almost all of us are going to have very light colored walls. You're going to have picture frames. You're going to have mirrors. You're going to have all this other stuff that's reflecting light back. Is it a deal breaker? No. It's kind of one of those things. If no one's in my house, I don't want that much light because it's a pain. But if there is someone in my house, then I want all the lumens. I want to burn their retinas out. I don't get too much wrapped around it. If I carry a EB2 backup. I think it's 500 on the high. I've got all the Surefire handheld lights, the ultras that are 5 or 6, I forget. That's plenty of light, you know. That being said, when I had a 60 lumen light on my rifle, I thought that I could signal the space shuttle. So, you know, you become very acclimated to what is used to you, what you're used to. I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably side more with what Mike Lamb said, is that if you don't want to go any less than 200, because you want to have enough light to overpower any light that person may have. So you don't want to be on the end of less light. But 200 would kind of be my low end benchmark, and then probably 500 on anything that I'm going to be actually using to fight with. You know, somewhere's in there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's probably good that I experienced it, because I just was like, first time I was like, oh, God. I mean, it's so bright, especially when you're groggy. Rob, you got to get on board here. You got to get on board.
Yeah, you know what? I just looked it up as you were talking about.
Yeah.
This guy is...
No, you missed out. You missed out, Rob.
Yeah.
Everybody was temple indexing, but you, Rob. You missed out. But no, I want to throw out to the panel, get your guys' thoughts if you guys have anything on... I'm just going to throw it out there if anybody wants to jump in on the light thing, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
So I got one for you, but it's not directly related to that. You said you woke up groggy, had your lights on. Have you ever done it before in dry practice? Have you ever cleared your house before? I've done it without my kids, my wife in the house.
I mean, I have, but not using the light.
This is where my blind corners are. This is where I should be putting more light. This is where if I shine a light in the mirror, it's going to flash back at me and temporarily blind me.
Yeah, no, I'd never in the dark. Obviously, you write it on a plan and do it, but I've never done it in the dark, and so that was I think a big shocker. So I think that's a really good point there. Of if you do it, do it at night too.
Do it one day.
Yeah.
Did you have a handheld light accessible, or did you just have your weapon-mounted light on your gun?
At that point in time, it was just the one on my gun. Normal every day, for example, like my back pocket, I have a stream light.
Cool.
But at that point in time, it was just, I felt bad for if someone was in my house because buck ass naked. That's what you're gonna get. That's what you're gonna get. So
that is a very good tactic, though. If you ever have to fight anyone that's naked, let me tell you, it's very psychologically debilitating. It is. I mean, especially as a guy. I mean, and it's funny you say that, because I'll speak about that in every single one of my concealed handgun classes. Not for this discussion, but kind of nightstand setup. It's like, if you think about it, those of us that carry a gun seriously, if the gun's not on our person, then it's probably because we're about to go to sleep and it's somewhere on our nightstand in that area. So what do you do with it then? Does it just sit on your nightstand? Is it in a drawer? Do you sleep it under your pillow? Do you have your pants rolled down, by the bed? Everyone's got their own way of setting it up, because you either sleep naked, maybe with running shorts on, or something like that. So when you jump up in the middle of the night, that's it. Ain't nobody gonna wait for you to get dressed. So I'm gonna go ahead and call that an idea for another show.
Okay, maybe we'll do that. Also, when is the NOLATAC jockstrap holster coming out?
We're doing field trials right now. We got some feedback from. Actually, it's funny. It's got some feedback from AA Ron Brumley. There were some issues with some of the plastic particles getting stuck in his teeth. So we're gonna go back to the drawing board on that.
Finally, a use for the Taurus curve.
By the way, if no one's mentioned that lately.
For what?
The Taurus curve has a recall on them.
Yeah, they didn't laser in the caliber on the barrel, right?
Exactly.
Which means, what else did they forget?
Sights.
All I know is that if you're carrying a Taurus curve and you're backing it up with an R51, you get a man.
R51. But I'll throw it out to the rest of the panel here. Anybody else have any comments and or questions or statements about the light thing?
Well, I did actually clear the. I cleared my house once with my light, weapons-mounted light, and it's funny. It does come in at 200 lumens, but considering it being used at night, I noticed in my house that 200 lumens in a dark house compared to what I'm used to seeing, which is darkness, that lights up a whole lot more than anything in the house could bring. more would be good, but I would actually wonder with the amount of reflection and like Brandon said, light walls, you got stuff that it could reflect off of, whether that might be far too much reflection for like a 500 lumen light inside a confined space like that, whether it actually be, could it potentially be a negative?
Right.
I mean, it's a shock going from dark house, no lights on, all your lights are off. You sit there for a couple minutes and get acclimated to it. Then you throw that light on. It's a shock.
Well, are you throwing your light on? Are you keeping it constantly and sweeping, or are you checking, cutting off?
Well, the first time I had it on the whole time. I mean, I'm not going to fall down with my gun while sweeping my house.
The thing with the light kind of, well, Brandon, correct me on this, because I'm just speaking from my own personal view here. The thing from a light, it works two ways. You can see things that you normally wouldn't see, but the other guy, if that light's not on them, they know exactly where you're at.
Well, that's the key. If the light's not on them, and again, that comes in that, oh, you're gonna give away your position. Well, the dude's in your house. Like, we're not playing hide and seek in the woods. This isn't paintball. So, like, at some point, that becomes less and less of a factor. The first question is, why are you moving through the house anyway? The only time you should be moving through that house with a light is if it's one of those false alarms where it's probably nothing, but I'm just going to double check, or it's definitely something and I'm going to get kids. If it's not one of those two scenarios, you need to be back in the bedroom with that gun pointed and that light shining on that closed bedroom door, waiting for him to cross that line to sand. But yeah, the light, the point of the light is not only for you to see, that's the tool for you from an offensive or a defensive point, but it's also an offensive tool for you to take away his vision. You know, if I get a guy that I could come down on and I can literally get him in the light and I'm covering him and I can hold him down with that light, that is a less than lethal level of force that I'm able to utilize instead of shooting him, hopefully. Because one, bullets are expensive, and two, wives tend to not like when you bloody up their new hardwood floors.
Yeah. Yeah. My only other thought on that too would just be to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just, maybe speaking out of my lane here, but having an accessible light that's not mounted to the gun. That's why I was so drawn to those, the funky ring. Using your gun light to, clear your house if that's a situation you get into, is you can find story after story after story of the deputy sheriff who shot his daughter sneaking back into his garage at night, because he, for one, obviously didn't
that's obviously be situation dependent. Like, for example, my wife and I don't have any children that live in the house. If you're in my house, I better know about her. I don't care who you are. You're going to get shot. The only people that come to my house is my mother-in-law or my mom or our nieces and nephews, and I know they're here. I'm expecting them. Only 2 other people have keys to my house, and they know, because they know who I am and what I do. They know when my mother-in-law comes in, I know she's coming that day, but when she comes in, she still yells from the bottom of the stairs. And that's because, and that's good. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, again, it's probably for another show, but when I do my class, there's 8 light sources immediately available to me on my nightstand. When you look at the gun, the gun on the back, the light on the bag, chem lights, a tap light. I got 2 light is important, because if something's going to happen at night, when you need light, you need the light. Like, nothing else is going to work. So I make sure I have that accessible in different places and in different ways. I mean, there's a lot of other things you can do when it comes to light inside of a home that helps you. So, modifying a few things on switches, different types of lights. Another big deal with the brightness of the lights in the house is going to depend on the color of the light. And for example, like photography lights are 5,000 Kelvin. That's your daylight. It's called daylight. What you typically see in fluorescent lights is going to be around 3,000, 3,200 Kelvin. That's an oranger tint light. So depending on what type of light you're using, and if it's the whiter the light, the brighter it's going to appear to you perceptually, especially if you're bouncing it off of stuff within your house. And that's the thing, is everyone's house is going to be different. Everyone's got different color paint and the absorption qualities and refraction of light, but you got to light your house up with your light to really know if it's enough or not enough or too much for you.
Give me all the lumens.
All of them.
But I'm gonna head up. Excuse me, I head here to wrap this up. This has been an awesome show, just an awesome show. And again, I can't thank the guys coming on the show enough and talking honestly about what they carry, where they go, and everything they're doing. But I mean, we got some pretty squared away dudes on here, anyways. But again, I want to thank everybody for coming on this show and talking about this. And again, I'm Brandon. But what I want to do is go down the line here, and I'll give everybody a minute or two here to talk about, plug whatever they want to do. then I'll go back to Brannon here and let Brannon plug anything else he's got going on or coming up. So, Stefan, dude, what if you got to plug something, what are you going to do?
Well, I have an Instagram, but it's private, so you have to ask me. But it's just Dude from Tejas. Also, Gun Channels is a forum started by Gun Websites, who's a big YouTube channel that's doing it for a long time. It's a pretty good group of guys over there. It's free to join, and I've had some really good conversations over there. So if you're interested, gunchannels.com.
All right. Jeremy, what could you possibly want to talk about during this point in time?
Well, DoctorKote LLC is my Instagram. DoctorKote.com is my website, and I recently have just released pre-order for do-it-yourself ballistic gel block kits. I provide everything that you'll need for an FBI spec block. I also sell fun little targets. Actually, I just sent one out to Aaron at Solo Defense for the I think it's the Bike to DC Challenge event he's holding.
Is it Dr. Cope, like C-O-P-E?
Coat as like the last 4 letters of Cerakote, because hopefully in the future that'll be.
A lot easier to just coat like a jacket, but okay.
Yeah, K-O-T-E. not the coat. Yeah, no. Yeah, just hopefully, like I said, the Cerakote operations hopefully will be there, popped up right there. Hopefully I'll have the Cerakote operations open up this summer. I'll be taking orders for that. But as of right now, I'm just doing the ballistics gel. I got a torso, full body with internals for training purposes coming out, and a ballistics gel head with the skull in it and bleeding brain matter once you shoot it. So that'll be fun.
And of course, man, you had the little gummy bears, dude. Those were sick. I know you're not going to do them anymore, but
they were a pain. They were a pain. I'm not doing those ever again.
But those were really cool. If you guys haven't, again, you can check out Practically Tactical on Talk with DoctorKote LLC, and of course check out his Instagram. The dude has just sick ballistic gel and some fun stuff for the kids too. So awesome stuff. So let's move over to Peyton. Guns 111th here on YouTube. Gun YouTube channel as well. What do you got going on, buddy?
It's been a slow year for the YouTube channel, to be honest with you. I'm probably only going to get 4 or 5 videos out, but I'd appreciate everyone's support. Just follow me at youtube.com/gunsofthe111th. You can find me there. Also active on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media. We're supported by our sponsor, Sonoran Desert Institute of Firearms Technology. Earn your associate's degree in gunsmithing online, and they give you an 80% lower, and they're working on 1911s also. So it's a damn good program to look at if you want to get into gunsmithing.
And you can learn more by visiting the Practically Tactical on Target show with SDI, episode, I believe, 2 or 3. Jason was on the show with do a Practically Tactical on Target.
Please only put knife in the same.
Guns 111 101 episode 4.
There we go. So again, check him out, guys. He's a great dude. Very, very awesome dude. Very pro Second Amendment. Very pro freedom. Awesome dude. So let's move on here to Rob. Rob, if you want to talk about something, what would it be, buddy?
Actually, I'll just start off by thanking everybody who was on. I really appreciate it. I really want to thank, honestly, Practically Tactical. Dude, it's a shameless plug, I know, because I'm on it. But I got into some YouTube stuff. Somehow I got turned on to your show by looking for a lot of gun-related podcasts, and all the guests that have been on, Jaeger to, Nick Smith and Jeff Bluevman. I mean, Jeff, it's tactical priapism. I mean, I love him. But learned so much, and truly, in all honesty, man, this project is completely changed how I look at stuff and filled me up with a lot of information, and I'm very glad to be a part of it, and I am definitely going to be checking in every week, man.
Oh, well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. That's some kind words, and just for those that are curious, I did pay him for that plug. But let's move it on to Tyson here, dude. Thank you for coming on. If you want to plug anything, what would it be, my friend? You there, Tyson?
Might have lost him again.
Uh-oh. He might be back. But, no, Brannon, what's going on with NOLATAC? I know you got some classes coming up.
Yeah, we're kind of ramping back up this year because I've been a little bit out the party, getting the range open, but the range is doing really good, and I got a good group of guys running it, so I can start to kind of peel off and do more stuff. All our stuff's on our Facebook page, either NOLATAC or St. Bernard Indoor Shooting Center. We're hosting this year. So we're again kind of light. We're kind of ramping everything up for next year, but still this year we got Ken Hackathorn, we got Jeff Gonzalez. We'll be doing a little small trauma medicine course, a little defensive carbine course, all out in Covington. And then, I've got some instructor development classes that I'm putting together and things like that. A couple of things, just wrapping it, bringing it together. Hopefully, you guys are getting the importance of having medical equipment and good medical equipment, preferably on your person and within immediate reach, and the knowledge to do it. There's two philosophies when it comes to medical equipment. One is if I'm not trained with it, I'm not going to carry it, and the other one is I may not be trained with it, but someone else there may be. And I tend to fall on that side. I'd rather have it for someone to use. I'd rather know how to use it, but if not, I'd rather have it for someone to use than have someone qualified to use it, but no one has equipment. So that, as I said, I carry two knives and 2 guns, just on the more lethal side. Just a point to make. Another reason I carry 2 guns is, well, first off, if 1 gun is good, 2 guns is gooder. And my wife is one of those people that is on the opposite end of the tactical spectrum that I am. She could care less about guns, but she knows how to shoot, and she's knowledgeable about when she should shoot. So I make sure she's properly trained to handle all the guns that I carry that she would come in contact with just for a safety standpoint. But I mainly carry that second gun for her. That way, if something happens, say we're in the mall having Orange Julius or something, and something pops off, obviously I'm going to get her to safety. But if I decide to try to solve that situation, I don't want to then leave her unarmed. So I know I could take a gun and give it to her, and she knows what to do with it. So I do that, and then also just for the normal reasons that people would carry spare ammunition or a spare firearm, I do. So that's something to kind of consider. A lot of you guys brought up carry position, appendix, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever. Whatever you're going to do, and this goes for gear and practice. The way you're going to use your gear, you got to fire test it. And going to the range and shooting your buddies is good. Dragging it behind your truck and freezing it in ice and all that stuff, but you really got to fire test it in an environment and in a training. Going to an ECQC class with Craig Douglas, Aaron Cowan puts on some force-on-force classes. Will Petty's puts on some vehicle CQB classes. Anything you're really going to use it as close to real life as possible to see what breaks, what works, what doesn't work, what's uncomfortable, all that. You really need to do yourself the service of doing that. Other than that, great show. We're always doing something. If you guys, if anyone's interested in hosting or anything like that, we got a couple spots left on the calendar where we don't have something going on. Let us know. We'll travel to pretty much any place where freedom is recognized. So that's it.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead to wrap it up here. So, again, thank these guys for coming on. Thank you about talking EDC. Again, there's so much great information. That's what I love about doing these shows every week here. And these themes are going to be back here. So, but as always here, guys, I thank you for watching the show and tuning into this show. It's been a great learning experience. So, while you're listening here to Practically Tactical, please check out all the other shows here on the Firearms Radio Network. Specifically, I want to throw out the Gun and Gear Review podcast. Ryan's doing an awesome job over there, and I know they've been doing some EDC shows, and it's going to be a recurring theme for them as well. So please go check out the Gun and Gear Review podcast and all the other shows here on the Firearms Radio Network as well. There's other shows that are great as well that talk about EDC stuff. You can do that by visiting firearmsradio.tv/iTunes. And, of course, send your feedback. If you like these shows, send me an email saying you like it. If you don't like the show, send me an email and say you don't like it. Please give me some feedback. Get suggestions to nick@firearmsradio.tv. Also, please give us a review on iTunes. I can't beg for that enough. That tremendously helps the show. So, again, I want to thank everybody for coming on here. I want to thank everybody for temple indexing on our way out of here. I really appreciate it. So, as always, guys and gals, we thank you for tuning in. We thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate it. And we'll catch you next week for another episode of Practically Tactical.